a little. Is that any better? Yeah, the accent kind of gives it away. I can't do anything about that, sorry. Well, I can, but I'm not going to just now. Right, okay. Yeah, let's not talk about my accent or anything else. This is what somebody has asked me to do, really, is to talk about the fact that I came to Islam. You know, alhamdulillah that I did. And I'm afraid I don't have one of those lovely, beautiful stories that I hear off most people. And they're grand, they really are great, you know, and it's this lovely soundbite story that people can instantly latch into. Mine just was not like that. It just was not like that at all. Okay, I won't stay on the mic because I have a real problem when people do that to you. They ask you to speak on the microphone and then they say, you have a woman's voice. Of course I have a woman's voice, I'm female. I find that really difficult. I haven't taken the mic for about 18 months because of it, because that people do. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's kind of unacceptable. Kind of unacceptable to do that to somebody. Oh, I find that difficult. Anyway, thanks a million. Okay, so I don't have one of those stories. It's great. Mine is very protracted and convoluted and takes some time, you know, to get there. And I'm obviously a stubborn person. Obviously very stubborn. But first up, nobody spoke to me first off about it. The first way I learnt about it was when I was training within my profession. First off, I had a young patient who, same age as me at the time, who was dying of something that was so nasty, very, very painful, and it was terribly, terribly sad. But this person was a very devout Muslim from where I could see. And the way that she had lots of people who had the same sort of illnesses. It was acute myeloid leukemia, and they had exactly the same sort of illnesses. But the way that this young man went about having this illness, the way that he handled himself throughout this illness, the way that he took everything, was just, it was outstanding. When you could see all these other people who, oh, you can't hear me now? Can you still hear me? Oh no, 20 seconds he's saying, he's not too. Yeah, the way he went about it was just, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. He took his pain, he took it all, he withheld it in himself, he was so dignified, whereas you had other people who were dying in the most horrendous ways, you know, screaming, shouting, carrying on. And the way he was just really preparing himself to meet his maker is how I saw it. And it was so absolutely blinding that it did make me go and look into Islam a little. So I looked a little just for the sake of working, you know, within these things, and I didn't take too much on. I was young and giddy still then, probably not much better now, but there you go. Well, to be honest, what was available to me at the time, which wasn't a great deal. But it put a seed in my mind that was there, you know. It wasn't a seed that, you know, Muslims are bad, Muslims are this, Muslims are terrorists, Muslims are the other. No, I didn't, not at the time. It just put a seed, in my mind, and that was about this person, and I always saw this very dignified person who accepted his fate and went to meet his maker, you know. That always stayed. So then, if you fast forward just a little on this, how I really did get to know some of Islam was just basically because, yeah, I was open to it, I was listening to it, so whenever it came up, I would take it in. Obviously the seed was there and my mind was, you know, my heart was open to it. Then you had, not that I wish to bring up bad things, but this is an event that really did make me stop and think. It upset me so greatly, was when the British government went in and invaded Iraq. I took it so personally. I was so upset. I should not have been doing it. I understood all that was going on. Weapons of mass destruction did not exist. And I was so personally angry. Everybody was, I know. I just really, and above all, you know, maintain life and safety and all of these things. And there's the government of the country I'm living within going and doing these things. So subhanallah, I decided to go off. We went off and had fun in the desert. We went off to the desert. Oh gosh, what's it called? The Sahara. We went off to the Sahara Desert. I took a break out. I really was. Yeah, I did. Fair play, we did. We went, and everyone was, you can't go. You can't go and play with those Arabs. You can't do these things. You can't do any of those things. And I won't carry on, because it's a real dig at the people who are around you at times for the way that they go about things and the way that they see things. As a traitor, I was going off to be with Arabs. But no, we went, and one of the best forms of dawah that I found for myself, because everybody is different and everybody has their own test, as the sister was saying before, LB, it's so true. One of the biggest things that I found was that we went into the desert, and there was a small mosque. It was a tiny mosque. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Yet we went there, and they allowed me in. They allowed me in to look around. They allowed me to just sit and be. So I spent sort of a day chilling out in a mosque, if you like, while we're on this fun holiday, away from all the different things that are going on within the world. And they allowed me just to be there. They didn't hassle me. They didn't particularly even talk to me much. So I couldn't speak Arabic very well, and they certainly couldn't. They allowed me to just watch them pray. They allowed me to just hear. Nobody can speak Irish. No, most of the Irish can, funnily enough, London. Forgive me. Yeah, they allowed me to listen to the prayers. And I found it so beautiful. I absolutely did. And the call to prayer, hearing the adhan, I realized the fact that I'd spent the last few years looking into stuff. I was reading books just because it had Islam mentioned.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, sister. Excuse me. Imaginary friend, you lost your mic. Pick it up, please.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, I'm not naturally given to speaking in this forum, so if I make any mistakes, please forgive me. I can't remember where I got up to. Okay, let me try turning it up again. Just hold on there. It's fairly high. I'm sorry, I'm not, I'm quite quietly spoken. Yeah, it is. Turn up your ears, please, darkness. Turn up your ears. It would help me immensely. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Okay, I'm not really sure where I got to, but just a brief recap is, young training within medicine. Came across a patient who died with the most dignity I've still ever seen in my life. Absolutely excellent ambassador for Islam, and may Allah reward him and be pleased with him. He really was, and I could, it still brings tears to my eyes when I think about that person and the way that he died, and how people of faith and true belief have a much easier time of things in life. They really do. And he was a fine example of that. So he opened me up to something. Again, I had from that I went on to something where, you have many trials and tribulations in life, don't you? Many different things that you go through. One thing was to do with housing, and I needed to get a solicitor to sort out, about housing when you're buying a house, different things. And I happened to get a Muslim solicitor, and the way he went about how he did his job and everything else. No voice? Can you hear me? Do I have voice still? Oh, sorry, I couldn't. I have no idea why it's doing that. Okay, yeah, that solicitor again, it wasn't that he was doing a job because, the law told him to do a job. He was doing a job because Allah told him to. He had to do his job well, and he had to, and again, I was touched by the dignity of people and how respectful they were. That's all I ever met in Muslims. No, I can't shout any louder. You have to higher up your ears. I'm so sorry. I'm doing my level best to speak as loud as I can for you. Right, okay, so yeah, again, I was touched by, so this made me want to find out what is it within this religion that is making these people the way that they are. the media is telling us one thing, everybody else is saying that there's something else. So I did start to look at things. And I found myself open to look at, well, I was reading things just because it had Islam in, not because it was an Islamic book. I was watching something because it had Islam in. And then I said about the war, you know, that the government went into Iraq, which I totally found so hard that I had to walk away from life for that little bit. And by walking away from life, you know, Allah brought me to something. It brought me to a desert where it was a very spiritual place where you do have time to reflect and be. And I was able for the first time in my life to hear the call to prayer, which even now when I think about it, makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. It was just outstanding till I realised I wasn't actually interested in the books that I was reading, the films I was watching or anything else. It was Islam. It was Islam and what was Islam. That was what I was actually interested in. So I came back and it kind of got forgotten by the wayside. Life takes over, you're doing different things. But it kept coming up, and it kept coming up in such ways that it scared me, if I'm honest. I was one of those people who was exceptionally stubborn. One of those people, I was getting slightly freaked out, thinking, am I going slightly crackers with this, that Islam is completely in my face? And I don't mean off Muslims or anything else, but it was just constantly around me, and I just couldn't seem to get away from it. And I am so incredibly stubborn. It's not a good quality at all, that I would run the other way from it. So not like all these people who, you know, and it wasn't, it did feel like that in some ways. It really did feel like it was after me. And I don't mean like the big hand came out the sky, it picked me up and shook me and said, oh, you dopey person, wake up and get with the program here. In some ways it would have been better if that had happened, but it was, you know, a little more subtle than that. But yeah, it was definitely after me, it really was. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to those who just came in. Yeah, it was definitely after me. And yeah, it took time to realise that it wasn't after me, it was guidance, that it was about coming to the thing, it was. And it took time to really be able to put my hands up to myself and admit, you know, I'm not living life the way I should be. I'm not happy living life the way I should be. I am searching for something else. I do want something else. But at the same time, I didn't know how to make those changes or how to go about it or what you do or anything. So I started to talk to people who I knew were Muslim. I started to ask questions, and one of the biggest questions, one of the biggest things that I looked for and I searched for, and the thing that really, really got me there was, how do you ask God for forgiveness? How do you ask? I've been brought up as a Catholic. I had absolutely no faith in Catholicism whatsoever. I find it, you know, I don't have a great deal of love for the Catholic Church, I have to be honest, but there's good people within it. And I'm not ever going to deny that, and I wouldn't get at somebody for just being that. But, you know, that was one of the biggest things, you know. I just didn't believe that I had to go into a little wooden box inside the church, in a confessional box, and ask a man who's probably doing far worse than I am in life to intercede for me, to ask God to forgive me. I just couldn't get my head around that concept anymore. But I also couldn't get my head around the concept that it's that easy that you actually just speak to God yourself, that you go around and you ask God yourself, you know, that's what you do. And so that was one of the things that I was, and the person who, thankfully, I mean, for my part, I had to come to the internet because I have a family who are quite anti-Islam. I was saying before, it's still not easy. May Allah guide them. It's still not. It's still almost a private thing, really. I cannot be in their face with it. But then Islam doesn't ask me to do that either. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to those who just came in. So yeah, I came, and thankfully I went to a room where there was somebody who understood how incredibly shy I was about this, that I couldn't even type in a main room to ask. I was that paranoid that somebody would find out it was me and me who was asking. And that's how I came up with the name Imaginary Friend as well, because this person was speaking like they were talking into the thin air, you know, that and they were talking to their imaginary friend. SubhanAllah. And they did spend a long time. They did, yeah, I know. They did spend a long time. They took months, and I understood the questions that I had, all the stuff that was just pouring out of me. It really was. And what about this? What about that? What about the other? You know. But it it all paled into insignificance once I did those things, was pick up the Quran and read it and start to read it for myself. And I also found out by coming to actually directly to a Muslim that I was reading a Quran that had been translated by a Jew, and that I wasn't, because I couldn't get my head around this copy of the Quran that I had, and some of the things that were in there were making my hair stand on end. It was, exactly, darkness. It was, Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It was not good, and I still find that something of, that should not have been allowed, because some of the things are in there. The person said to me, "Where are you getting this from?" So I told them, and they're like, "Throw that copy away, just throw it away," and they advised me which one to go get. And it all started to fall into place a little bit better, a little bit easier. And I had never, ever, ever in my life felt so blessed as when those things started to just slot into place, when I stopped fighting, when I stopped running, when I stopped trying to not be something, when I just allowed it to be, when I allowed it, rather than fighting it, just accepted it. It was just amazing. And it was like somebody else was taking care of everything else, and it was Allah, the greatest of planners, was taking care of everything else, and I was allowing it to happen. I wasn't blocking it any longer, and it really was, it was just like walking on air. And sometimes you lose that, because it's 2 years that I've been reverted now, or just over 2 years, and I'm not going to say I've had the easiest of journeys. I'm not going to say I will have. I'm probably a person who needs to be tested. I probably am, and I need to fight for things as well, so there is times when I have to do that, and it's not all a bed of roses. Allah, just because you've reverted doesn't mean that you skip off into the sunset, but it's certainly a lot better. Life is managed in a different way. I am definitely a better person. I am definitely a happier person, and I definitely know where to fall back. I definitely know where to go. I definitely know who to ask. Yes, alhamdulillah. I definitely know who I'm relying on. No, I didn't. I always thought I'd be one of those people, because I was always very open, very cultures, different things, other people. It didn't bother me, I certainly don't have prejudices and different things. Very easy going like that. Whereas a lot of people I know where I come from do, they do have these things, these issues. And I never ever thought of myself as being one. And that was part of the problem at the time as well. I was thinking, how am I going to go, how am I going to face this person if I'm that? How am I going to do that, But Allah will always find the way. He will always find the way, and you just have to not block it. You just have to allow it. Or if you're the sort of stubborn character that I am, you have to allow that to happen. And I'm really pleased that I did it. There are times when I have really thought, what have I done? As in, not with regards to Islam, but regards to sometimes other Muslims around me, and that's not to cause any fitna or anything else, but I went back to that mosque that I originally went to. 2 years on, that was one of my goals, was to go back and say to them, you're fabulous, you were just so great, and I've come back as a Muslim because of the time I spent here. I went back to that mosque. I'm going to laugh, I'm going to try really hard not to. So I saved up the money and got myself back to the Sahara, got myself back to that mosque. I knocked on the door and they shut the door in my face. SubhanAllah, they wouldn't let me in. So it was quite a funny situation, really. I honestly don't really know why. So I kept knocking. I'm normally quite a shy person, and I won't make a scene and that sort of thing. But it taken so much courage to go, and get there. So I was hammering on that door in the end, and there was a marketplace, and people could see it all going on. And they kept saying, tourists later, tourists later. So I started, speaking. I started trying to explain, and I was doing this. So again, door got shut in my face, and I was after saying to your man then, I asked to actually hammer it on this door. I said to them, what are we now? We become Jews. The whole marketplace erupted in laughter, because that's something that Jews put people through when they revert. You have to have the door slammed in your face and all that, carry on. But it was, yeah. But I don't really want to get into that too much, but a mosque further along allowed me in. They were not of the Sunni persuasion, shall we say, but their prayer wasn't different, and it was the first time I got to pray in a mosque, and I was sobbing. because I was praying in a mosque that was so beautiful and what have you. And all the other women in there were sobbing too because I was crying. They had no idea why I was crying, but they were obviously feeling what I was feeling, or they might have just been crying because they had me in there. And that's what, when the sister earlier on was talking about the different mosques, believe me, I've been there. I've had real experiences of mosques to the point where I like to pray at home. But yet there's so many other things that I could bring to this story, but they get too personal. But on the whole, yes, it certainly got to the point where my interest was opened up for me. It was shown to me, and then I ran away, and it did feel like I was hunted. It did. And then it really did. When I started to understand things, it was guidance rather than... And I was so fortunate to be picked. I was so fortunate to found it and to be given that. Yeah, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Anyway, that's enough out of me yabbering on here, Thanks a million for listening to me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.